Hello and welcome to this game review. This one we will talk a bit about materialism and when not to take too many pawns and focus on other things, especially development and king safety. So we started as a Caro-Kann and black was allowed to play more or less everything c5, and here white's knight on c3 is simply misplaced, as white would really like to play the move c3 to solidify his pawn chain, but now as he allows black to develop, the pawn on e5 has become weak. So white plays this check, which doesn't really make sense, as black was going to develop the knight anyway to d7 or c6, and this bishop is simply now misplaced. And here white makes a terrible move, knight a4, which has more or less no idea, because black can at worst case just move away the bishop, and now the knight doesn't make any sense. But in a better case, black can look for checks, captures, and attacks, which he did, and queen a5 is a great move, which of course signals that this was a terrible move. White has to go back. Now we get this position. Black has won a free move, as the knight has walked back and forth. At this point, black has 4 pieces developed against 3. So this is not too much of a development advantage, but since the king is in the center, and already there is some indirect pressure, this gives us some kind of chances. And here already the move d4 is winning, which on the surface looks like it wins the piece, but it's a bit more difficult than that. White can take on c6, and now there is no one defending d4. White has to take it, otherwise we're just taking the knight. So after this, now the point is we can play rook d8. And now this is another pin, and this knight is very unstable. Bishop e3 could be played, but now we can simply take it, and again use this pin to play c5. Now this bishop cannot move because of the queen, which means we are winning the bishop next. We will be in time to castle the king as well, and we will have a piece up. So this is something that could be found. Of course, it's not the most obvious variation in the world, but d4 of course should be considered. So black plays bishop b4, and you mentioned you wanted to win a rook, but this is a bit too optimistic, as firstly black is not really threatening to win a rook. For example, if white skips a move somehow, this isn't really winning a rook. You won a pawn, but after bishop d2 your queen has to go somewhere again, so you only won a pawn. Also here we should take the bishop, of course. So this is the big threat, taking here or just taking here because this is a pin. But white can get rid of this threat by taking here, not losing time. And now why did the bishop go to b4 in 2 moves? It's not clear. Instead we should have probably at least finished development with knight e7, or even castling king queen side. And it's not necessarily about getting the king safe, as this is of course going to be important in the long term, but it's more so about the short term, and this rook in the short term will be very well placed on the d file. For example, after bishop c6, d4 can be played. Turns out black is just winning here, as now the threat is to take here and later to take here, and white is not in time to get rid of all the threats. This bishop is more or less trapped. It goes here, now it's going to be dropping down, so black is winning in a variety of ways, and this rook on the d file will help. Instead, we move the same piece twice, which is generally not a very good idea, unless you're absolutely sure that you're getting something. Now bishop c6, bishop d2, and still we haven't really gotten anything, and here knight e7, a3, and bishop takes c3, with an exclamation mark, but we don't really have much of a choice, right? As if bishop c5, then there's a fork, so we must take here, move the queen, and here black has an advantage, but the advantage is kind of more of a long-term advantage, as black has these strong pawns in the center. White is in time to castle. Still, this is of course good for black, but as we saw, black could have already won the game. Okay, bishop b4. It's kind of a strange move, as now c5, bishop d2, knight g6, so now black gets greedy to take this pawn, and after c4 he goes and takes it. So a few things to understand here. We have opposite colored bishops, especially if the knights are gone, we will be left with opposite colored bishops. What does this mean? Well, it certainly does not mean any drawing tendencies. With opposite colored bishops, the winner is the one who is attacking, because if one side is attacking on, for example, the light squares, then this bishop will not be able to participate in the defense because it cannot cover a single light square. which means if one side is attacking, this side will more or less be a piece up in this attack. So who is attacking? Well, it's currently not clear. Both kings are in the center, so the next few moves are very important. So knight takes e5. After all, this is a good pawn to take. So if it's possible, we should take it. Now queen e4, and now the problem is our king kind of has to move. It doesn't really have to move. It could go back with the knight and castle. This would probably be the simplest solution here, as we are a pawn ahead for more or less nothing. But king e7 was played, which is more ambitious, keeping the knight on a good square. C takes d5, and this opens up the center towards both kings. Knight f3, gf, and here black plays this move queen e5. But again, this is still the opening after all, and we still have not developed all of our pieces. The rooks are in the corners. Why are they in the corners? It's not clear. And at this point, we are getting closer to answering the question of who is attacking. And black says it's him, but with only a queen and a bishop, it's not really going to be enough. And we will need more pieces, specifically the rooks. And developing this rook is especially important, because then if our king goes back, then the rook will not be out of play. So in chess, we must use all of our pieces. And here, had black played rook h to d8, white's king is very weak. He could castle. After rook takes d5, black is a pawn ahead. He can also try to attack on the 5th rank, and this king will eventually be safe on g8. Instead, queen d5, but now white is able to improve his rooks, rook d1, and after queen f3, we are 2 pawns ahead. And this will be important in the long term, but in the short term, we are getting attacked. And our king, notice, will walk around on the dark squares, which is not very good because we have a light squared bishop and he has a dark squared bishop. So again, even though we have a long-term advantage in a pawn, this will not necessarily be enough to win the game. So white kind of has to do something very dynamic very quickly, but he doesn't really manage. Bishop g6 is a nice move, rook g1, queen e4, bishop e3, and king e7. And this gives up the pawn on g5, and now we can see the problem with the king. Even though the material is kind of equal, black is the one who is losing because it is white who is attacking. And again, he's attacking on the dark squared diagonals, and we don't have a dark squared bishop. He does, so he will be the one winning. So f6, queen c5, king f7, rook d7. Now white has enough attackers. He plays king f1, queen e7 kind of wins the game on the spot, as now queen f7 and queen g7 are both checkmate due to the pin. There's not much black can do. Set king f1, check is given, another check, and queen e4. And it's hard to suggest anything, but probably the best thing to do in such positions is to get the rooks into game. And it's not clear how, but rook b8, maybe take here. The position should be lost. Queen b1. And here, black gets kind of lucky and just gets a free rook again. White is winning in a variety of ways. This seems simplest, as simply threatening checkmate, and there's not too much black can do. But after this, we are now a rook up, and the attack is over because he lost his attacker. And king f7 is a good move, developing the last rook, and from here the game is over because black is a rook up for nothing. So quite a lucky ending by black. We could have played a lot better here. And remember, firstly, just because a move looks fun doesn't mean we should play it. Of course, chess is a game, so we should kind of have fun, but if we are looking for the objectively best moves, we should be looking for ways to solve the problems that we have. Now our problem is the king and the rook. So here bishop d3 could have been played, it turns out, not allowing the opponent to castle. Next move will be rook h to d8, putting the rook on the open file, and the king can run away, after which black is a lot better because of the safer king. So hopefully this was useful, and hopefully the other time you see a position with opposite colored bishops, you will think about your king much more. Good luck.